Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be setting up the Gary Numan keyboard rig. Wish me luck. So we've got one keyboard talking to the laptop. Why? Oh, for come on! Hi, Oren. Yeah, it's Ravy. Oh, sorry, mate. I didn't realise what time it was. Oren, yeah, it's Ravy again. Yeah, sorry, mate. Okay, so we've finally got it all working. If I just bring you in over here, we've got the keyboards. Starting with this laptop. It's got a program on it called MainStage, which is an amazing piece of kit. It's my favourite thing in the world. It basically gives you a whole different keyboard setup for every song that you do on any gig. I use it on all the gigs that I do now because it's so versatile and powerful. You can run all your synths that you use, your hardware synths, like got a Access Virus here. I could have any number of those, all plumbed into this. I've got all these keyboards, they're all in there. You've got a mixer. It's just a brilliant piece of kit. So basically what we do is we can scroll up and down those songs, and every time you change song, it just completely reconfigures your keyboard rig. If you can see that changing, that's essentially a different keyboard rig every time I switch songs. And combinations of keyboards, edited sounds, effects, what goes out of what outputs, you name it, it all changes every time I do that. So, I mean, obviously you have to program it and it takes all the rehearsal time to do that. But once you've done it, it just does it for you. So instead of having banks and banks of keyboards like you would have had in the old days, and then between songs you're having to change patches and change effects and God knows what, it's literally just a press of a button and it's all done for you. So over on the left, you have the set list that we make up. I can just drag and drop songs and all the patches and all the sounds for those songs that I have saved in the laptop into that set list, and all the settings that I have pre-programmed will just carry straight over. Over here on the right are the corresponding sounds, and I can mix them and change them any way I want during rehearsals, and I often do all the way through the tour, to be honest, just constantly changing things and making things better. In the middle is this wonderful representation of the three keyboards that I play. As you can see, in a very satisfying manner, the keys actually change on the screen as you play, which is great fun. If I can just go into a little bit more depth, let's pick a song. I don't know. Here in the black, there's no virus on this one. It's muted, so no virus. A couple of Omnisphere things going on there. Cello, that's probably from the old Quadrasynth, because that was the sound, one of the sounds that we sampled from there. Let's go into another song even. Our Friends Electric. This is the various different bits. In fact, let's just hear it. So that, yeah. So the main riff is on the top. Prayer for the Unborn is essentially Utron, which is a sound we sampled from the old quadrasynth, the Alesis quadrasynth that we used to use. The polysynth, I don't know if you can see that there, is a sound that we sampled from one of Gary's old D50s. And then there's some, the virus, you can see in there. Just subtly different sounds for different parts. If I remember rightly, it gets louder and louder throughout the song, so it probably starts down here and gets gradually louder until you're up here. I can't play it with one hand. Down in the Park, that's quite a good one. The thing about these songs are they're not extremely difficult to play. It's just choreographing the different parts so you can get from part to part. And I guess it's a bit like dancing. Once you find yourself on the wrong foot, you've had it. You're going to miss the next part. Down in the Park is quite a good one because there's a lot going on and you've got to get from part to part. So that's I don't know if you can see that. That's on the keyboard here, but then you go lower on the keyboard and there's the solo. If I remember rightly, the main riff is here. Which gets bigger and bigger until you're larging it up here. Up on the, and I think there's something down there. So there's all different parts all over the keyboard, and you just got to remember where they all are and then get from part to part throughout the song. As I say, if you miss it, if you miss a cue or miss where you're supposed to be at any one time, that can be it. You've had it. Metal is quite a good one. Oh yeah, the main riff up here. While you're doing that with this hand is, you've got this beautiful polysynth. There's three things making up that sound. I've got a bit of old sampled D50, some virus, and an omnisphere. Now people can get quite sniffy about MainStage. They think it's a bit of a toy. A lot of people like to have a lot of old gear, old keyboards on stage rather than having this new technology. It's a little bit like the vinyl versus CD debate or the digital versus analog thing. People don't like to move with technology and it can get quite pretentious. I've seen keyboard rigs, lots of wooden old furniture and organs and valvey things with knobs and faders and all the rest of it. MainStage is only as good as the synths that you have installed on your laptop and that you drive it with. If you just use the internal things that come with Logic, then you're going to struggle perhaps, but if you can arm it with some good hardware synths and plugins, then it's an amazing piece of kit. I'll just show you some of the things that I use on the Numan gig. What have we got? So the Virus. The Virus is, as I said before, the only hardware synth that I use. Gary and his producer Aid Fenton like it a lot, use it a lot, and we have several versions of it. The rack mount version there, and the keyboard. I think that's what Gary actually plays on stage, the keyboard version. And then, so that's there. Let's just open up this. They're all the preset things that you get with Logic. I actually do use them. I use some of these on the gig, but here is what else I've got. What have I got? So Spectrasonics, Omnisphere, Keyscape for pianos, beautiful. Omnisphere, Gary uses that an awful lot. Rob Papin, Predator, amazing. Ari Effects, Vanguard. I don't think they make that anymore, but that's a fantastic dance thing. I don't use that so much with Gary, actually. Native Instruments, Complete, gotta have that. We use that a lot. Korg for the M1. Gary loves an old piano sound that we still use quite a lot called Beauty, that you can only get from there. IK Multimedia, Philharmonic 2, beautiful. G-Force, Imp Oscar, Mini Monster, and the Oddity 2. Couldn't live without them. That's what I have under the bonnet here. That's the other thing that we do, is we use the internal sampler that comes with Logic and MainStage, and we've got lots of Gary's old keyboards sampled into there. That took a long time, but it was really worth it. We saved lots of things, even the things from the D50s and the more recent things like the Alesis Quadrasynth. Sampled them, have them in the sampler that's in MainStage, and I can play them live. In the Virus, when Aid Fenton introduced me to this, and there was somebody had given Aid a lot of patches that he had programmed himself, this sort of mythical being that had done this incredible thing and created these beautiful, perfectly matched old synth sounds, and he'd programmed them all presumably in here. I later found out that it was a guy called Matt Jessup, who I've never met. I'd like to meet him because I owe him a frothy coffee or something, because he's made my life a lot easier, and the guy's a bit of a genius. But he programmed a load of the sounds from Gary's original albums, and we've got them all in here. So yeah, if I just come in and try and show you some of these, if this will focus. We're So Fragile, Moog, Phaser Moog, Voxamana, Love How Aid, Moog Bass, this wreckage. Yeah, there's some great sounds in there. Thank you, Matt Jessup. I owe you one. This laptop drives all the sounds, creates all the sounds, most of the sounds for the keyboard rig. And then here are the keyboards. These aren't actually the keyboards that I use on Gary's gig, because they're in the lockup, which are just what they call controller keyboards. They don't actually make a sound. They get their sound from this laptop and this module called a Virus. So they're there. Down the bottom we've got sustain pedals for the different keyboards. That's this one. That's a spare. Masses of keyboard, masses of cables, and as I say, we've got the lovely Access Virus there, which is the only bit of hardware that I use now. When I first started doing this gig, there was everything was hardware keyboards, no software synths at all, and there was mountains of the stuff. Back in the early days, before my time in the Chris Payne days, there would have been lorry loads of gear. I remember being at Gary's house and sitting on a flight case and noticing a big flight case and noticing that it had something like a 38 written on it, and realising that it would have been flight case number 38 of maybe 50, 60, I don't know, all with keyboards, all with gearing. Now it's pretty much that. That's the entire keyboard rig. But back in the day, before my day, there would have been, as I say, lorry loads of them. So we've got it down to this. So when we perform some of Gary's older songs, we like to perform them in the same way that they would have been performed back then. That is to say, the people that you can see on stage with very little else going on, usually nothing, but sometimes they would have used drum machines for the sounds of that time that were used on the album. And the reason they did that was because they wanted the songs to sound live like they do on the records. People come to the gigs, that's what they want to see. It would be easy for the drummer or somebody else to stand there playing that drum machine, but they're busy playing their own actual instruments. So they would probably just set off a drum machine if they were going to use it and let it roll, and then they could play along with it. Now the same principle works today. There are things that you hear on the record that we could play. We could stand there triggering things. Richie, the drummer, does do that. He triggers lots of things. He's got all sorts of pads and things that he can set off. But we use these things down here that can do that for us. On Gary's more recent material, the production style has changed. There are things going on, sounds, effects, noises, drum loops that didn't used to happen on older records. And all of that can be played live. It would be a case of pressing a pad, holding down a key to trigger a drum loop or make a sound happen, or a bass rhythm, a sequencer. But we decided not to do that. We're busy enough doing the other things that we do, playing the keyboards and playing the drums. So we put that into these machines here, these two things here. They're both the same. One plays and the other one is a backup. So we've got sound beds and all the other things that we don't play on there. Anything that we do play isn't on there. There would be no point in having it coming from two places. So on here is, if I just start, actually that's not a, is that gonna play? That's not a new song, but it's a new arrangement of an old song. But you can hear that these noises could be triggered live, but there's not really an awful lot of point. So what you get is that this is showing you there's a stereo track of what you can hear, and sooner or later a click track will come in, so that, there you go, on the third track there's a click, so we all stay in time. That comes out of a different output, so you don't hear it, we hear it in our ears. I'm in by this point playing low notes, and somewhere around here Richie the drummer brings us all in, and we're all playing the da 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 da. So you can hear what's going on in the background. It's just kind of atmospheric things that, to be honest, there's no point in us playing. It's like an extra member of the band, this machine. It just does the things that we don't want to do. We will be playing the melodic stuff that you can hear. And you can hear that that's not on this track. Let's try and find something a little bit more contemporary. What about Ghost Nation? Is that going to play? Now Ghost Nation is one of the very few tracks that comes in click first, and then Richie. Now these booming noises and atmospherics, all, as I say, we're all in actually at this point playing along with this, but that's a sequencer that we could trigger live, but we play other things. This pretty much pulls along like that throughout the whole song. There's not really an awful lot that goes on. In this one actually, you get some vocal cues. So on that same track that the click's on, we hear a voice counting, because occasionally this stops and there'll be silence, and then you'll hear a count, and we'll... Oh, there you go. I don't know if you could hear that, but that was it. On the more... Because on some songs there's nothing rhythmic to latch onto, so that's why we have the click and occasionally the vocal cue. But that sequence, I could trigger that by hitting a pad or holding down the key, but there's not a lot of points, so we get this machine to do it, and as I say, it's like an extra member of the band. That's what goes on this song. It just noodles away in the background while we do our thing. Gary and his producer Aid Fenton have produced this fantastic album with all this wonderful technology, and people want to still hear that. And yes, we could try and do that like this, but I'm busy playing the keyboards, Richie's busy playing the drums, so it's the same, exactly the same. If the band from 1979 were trying to produce the songs that we play today, they would do it in exactly the same way that we play the songs that they played in the same way. Let's try and make it sound like the record. Let's use the technology that we've got. So we've got the sound beds going, we've got the loops going, and then I play whatever else can be played. If it can be played, I'll play it. You're just going to have to take my word for it. I'll play that keyboard part. What's up here now? You know, things like that. That's a beautiful sound. You probably can't hear how nice it is. I put my foot down on here. That will stay forever. And then when you've got a setup like this and you're on tour and you arrive in a different venue every day all over the world, and the same setup is set up like that for you, it's a fantastic environment to write. I spent a lot of the 2 years on the Savage tour standing right there working on songs. I pretty much wrote an album in the dressing rooms, on the tour bus, in hotels, or on stage, before soundcheck. So the album's just about finished now, and I'd really love you to hear it. So if anybody's interested, please click on the link and buy the album.